Debit orders are pool transactions from consumers' accounts. It allows users to set up mandates to make payment for any type of service they are consuming from a merchant without having to take any action at the point of payment.
DebiCheck is a type of debit order that's been implemented by the Payment Association of South Africa and overseen by the South African Reserve Bank. So as much as debit orders brought about an authorized agreement between an end user and the business to collect funds on their behalf, this agreement was often in written format, so maybe a paper contract or maybe sometimes even verbal, and there was no actual digital track or digital record of the particular contract agreed upon between the service provider and the end user. This ended up in a lot of disputes occurring against any collections that were carried out against the customer's accounts, and that's why DebiCheck was introduced. DebiCheck serves to solve this particular problem of unauthorized or unexpected disputes for collections by ensuring that the contract between the business or service provider and the end user is actually electronically recorded and owned and managed by the banks themselves. This mandate between the end user and the business ensured that collections only occurred based on the constraints within the contract. This drastically reduces the number of disputes that can occur against a collection, because any disputes that would be processed would have to be completely outside the constraints of what was agreed upon between the merchant as well as the end user.
This protects the consumer, making sure that only debit orders are set up for transactions that they authenticate. A lot of the complication around collecting DebiCheck and debit orders is the communication between the merchant and the bank that is essentially making these DebiChecks or debit orders. Part of what Stitch offers to our merchants is really abstracting this complication and ensuring that we improve our collection rates as much as possible.
Some of the key pain points that our clients experience when integrating recurring payments include managing relationships with the banks, understanding the APIs and any of the documentation that has been released by the banks, as well as automating a lot of the upfront processes that haven't necessarily been incorporated into the products that the banks have released to facilitate the recurring payments. As Stitch and with our DebiCheck offering, we're aiming to solve all three of these problems by completely abstracting the experience from the banks to our clients and presenting them with an API that's easy to use, that's a lot simpler, and that's a lot more intuitive. Businesses that would benefit from a solution such as DebiCheck or debit orders would be any business looking to do recurring payment collections from their customers, such as subscription services, lending companies. Schools are also leveraging a lot of recurring payment mechanisms, as well as utilities and any other platforms or organizations that would require recurring payment collections.